Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
And it is number 220 in Sounding the Shallows. I would just say, by the way, that I feel such warmth towards people who do listen to us every now and then. You never know. We never look at numbers. We've no idea how many people or where they are, really, unless they write to us. But there is quite a profound feeling of, don't know, it isn't really perhaps it's a family feeling, but a feeling that it's good to be with you, those people who do too. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I think, watching the beginning of the Paralympics, Adrian, in Paris, and you sense such a sense of community. There were some countries there with just one person aiming to get a medal. There were other vast numbers of people, and some that would have had more, but some weren't quite fit enough to be there on that first opening ceremony. And I thought the whole thing felt like a community, that everyone was part of it. And they were part of it because they had differences they would understand of so many different things. Such we've talked a lot, haven't we, about seeing difference and valuing difference. And it was overwhelming, really, the joy of being there. And I think it was Ellie Simmons saying, yes, use your mobile phones because you'll never be able to remember it. Because I was sitting there in my stuffy way thinking, oh, look, they've got mobile phones out. But actually, that joy of capturing something so different, and for so many of them, the result of such crazy level of hard work to get there. And one of the commentators made the point, didn't they, that, for some of them, getting out of bed is pretty difficult, let alone learning some sport.
That's right. I think some people, if they came to that particular event, the procession, the opening event, were going to have trouble getting up in the morning and being fit enough to go on. Exactly. Yeah, it was very moving, and things really have changed incredibly. So yeah, we rather enjoyed that.
It was very long because there were so many countries. That's why it was so long.
It must be rather wonderful, though, as you said, to be the one person from a country who possibly could win a medal for them. I don't know. Must be a great feeling. Yeah. So what else has taken your attention this week?
Well, we did say that we were going to look at some of the emails. I mean, you were mentioning how lovely it is, and we really mean it, hearing from people. It feels such a privilege, really. But there was one that we both ended up focusing on, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's quite a long email and really, really interesting. And I do thank the person who's sent it. All sorts of points.
Well, I think you and I both. But what is always interesting is if we pick up on something different within it as being particularly interesting. Which was the bit that you?
Well, one of the things points that the speller makes is that Paul makes the point in Romans 3 that your experiences still matter, the ones you have had, the things that are part of you, and are an essential an essential chapter in the book, because as he says, or as Jesus says in Matthew 13:52, the old things are still part of the treasure. I think if only people can really feel the latter, they can walk into the new without fear.
Okay, so why? I mean, I find that interesting, but it didn't grab me. What was the thing that grabbed you about that?
Well, I think that I've encountered just in conversation with people and in reading what people send to us, a sort of mourning, a feeling of loss for the validity or the strength of something that at one time really got them moving and stirred them up. And they're wondering why that seems to no longer be there, and whether they ought to ditch that and move on to some other thing that might make more. I suppose it was emphasized by the fact that been looking at a few verses in the Bible that seem to me like the old squash lemon thing. You know, it's the eternal lemon. You squash it and something else comes out. But I'm talking about the story of
Squeeze it, I
the
think,
road to
not
Emmaus.
squash it.
Well, don't know, squeeze it and squash it. Where the two disciples are, as the Bible says, standing still, looking sad.
You've always found that so moving.
And they've lost impetus. The past is rubbish. The future is empty.
Everything they had thought.
Everything this mad rabbi said has not happened.
Yeah.
And they had a view of what was to happen that was clearly wrong, as we discover later in the story. So there's that. But what we then discover, even later in the story, is that although they may have made a wrong conclusion and therefore are drooping sadly home to Emmaus, the fact is there is still within them the capacity to hear and feel the fire that was in them before. And suddenly they know why they were following. It wasn't because something was going to happen that seemed important to them. It was because of a person. And because that person, as soon as he broke bread, we all know the story, but as soon as he broke bread, the rabbi was back, the one who disappeared, and it was the stranger who they couldn't recognize. And they then, one says to the other, didn't you feel it when he spoke to us, the fire that we should have known it was him. So most of us,
the fire that had almost gone out was still there, but needed to. Is that what you're saying? Or?
I think that the reason for excitement was still there. And I was thinking today about this particular issue, about going back to when I became a Christian when I was 16. And I'm very conscious that people like Paul Tournier, a Swiss psychiatrist whose books we used to read, should still, they're great books, talking about a man coming for counselling, and Paul Tournier ending up saying, I think the major problem for you is your conversion. Well, this is almost heresy in the evangelical world. But what Paul Tournier was saying was that the manner of his conversion led almost immediately into things that had no real connection with the power that was there before, perhaps like them, the feeling of fire that that made that person decide or make a decision about something. And looking back at my own conversion, and I can't even quite use the word anymore, but I remember centrally, and I have often mentioned it, the sense that the man who was talking about Jesus said, he said yes.
Well, it was the thief on the cross, wasn't it? The story that affected you so
right.
much.
And the yes remains. But I could possibly look back and say, well, that was just a little part of a whole scheme of misunderstanding. But I've still got that yes in me.
You have.
And when you speak to people and you try to give your heart to them, and let your heart go out to them, you see what yes means to people. So I do rejoice in a rather quiet sort of way that that's still there. It's really exciting.
It's hard. I mean, no, it's not hard. That's not the right word. It's natural that one can't keep that feeling all the time, I think. And I had a radio this week. We've been away, haven't we, for a couple of days. It's like a mini holiday, really. It was actually your birthday present sort of postponed, wasn't it?
Yes.
And well, this sounds so silly in the middle of what we were just talking about, but I went into a certain shop in a service station, one of those ones where there's a big court with all different places. So you've got all the traditional eating or quick eating things. And there was a shop there, famous perhaps for its slogan, "This is not just something or other, it happens to be this place, this thing." Anyway, I bought a sandwich. Well, we bought 2 sandwiches, and one of them was a cheese and pickle sandwich. And as I took the sandwich out of it's packing. There was a gold ticket, and it said winner on it. And I was a winner.
This is real Roald Dahl
Well,
stuff,
I
isn't
know.
it?
Well, not quite, because it didn't quite take me to Charlie's Chocolate Factory. What it did was it told me that I had £10 I could spend in this store. And
You
I
were
was,
like a 4-year-old.
I was so excited. A winner. I was a winner. And actually, the truth is, when I went back to claim my prize, the manager of the shop was equally excited and said she'd been in this shop for 6 years and she'd never had a winner, and I was her first winner, and she got another person in the store to come and take a picture of us because I was a winner. But you know, what struck me is that you were just talking about that fire and about that feeling of something real, that you can't hang on to that feeling all the time. And I thought, I'm more excited about this than I am about salvation, really. You know, the amazing free gift of salvation. I can't, and the danger is because I can't feel that all the time. I am equally vulnerable as so many people are to being whipped up into trying to feel that excitement in worship or whatever it is.
Do you think you should feel
No.
continuously?
No, I don't.
excited
And that's
about
no, I
salvation?
don't. And that's why I love you saying about, for you, it is, for C.S. Lewis, I know he said, it is the breaking of the bread. It's a moment when there's something different that touches something that was put into you at that moment, when a strange reality began that doesn't make any sense in the world's terms,
really
and yet you don't get rid
not
of it.
to lose those things. I think this is why the thing that the email mentioned that I read, that if you dump too much, you can get into big trouble, because some point, sometime, someone gave you something really valuable,
Something really
worth
special.
even more than £10.
Even more than my winner's ticket.
Salvation
I
may
do
not be
hope-
worth as much as £10.
Well,
But,
I wasn't just a winner. I was
yeah.
the special winner.
Yeah.
But the thing is, no, I agree with you absolutely.
And just to add to that, I mean, as we've said before, a number of people we meet now have something in their hearts that they don't understand, that still burns in them, if you can like to put it like that, and no words to wrap it in. And that's a very similar thing, and the people longing, searching, hunting for a way to have and I use the word advisedly, a respectable perspective on that, in terms of understanding and some kind of usable logic when it comes to faith. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing that this guy, thank you for this email, and we have actually received other ones that have stimulated us just as much, but it's just that I asked you what affected you most in this email, and in a way it still fits with what we're talking about, because he goes on to talk about the fact that the kings and the shepherds have become, well, he says, kitsched up, you know, made. I mean, and we all love it. We're not moving towards Christmas here, but all the kings and that appear on Christmas cards, and the shepherds that appear on Christmas cards. In fact, you know, if you take away the manger, those are the two images that that we can think of most. But he made the point that actually they were the ones that eerily break into the familiar order, because they were total outsiders in terms of Jewish spirituality.
They are very odd phenomenon.
Really odd. Not so much maybe the shepherds, but the kings. Well, I don't know, because with the kings, we're talking about people who are pagans, but also, and they've been following a star. And this guy makes the point that in Deuteronomy, they were forbidden to lift up their eyes unto the stars. So there's God, first of all, guiding these wise men through this forbidden practice, and then, you know, with the shepherds, there they are, it's a starlit night, they're looking up, load of angels up there. And I think the point he was making was, and I found this really interesting, that all those familiar things, and you're talking about familiar, you were talking about that touch of something that so much part of you that it is familiar. But there are other things that, you know, that were continually thrown out. And he makes a point that I hadn't thought about, that John the Baptist throws away all the sacred traditions of sacrifice, and he says replace them with an unbiblical water ritual, which wouldn't have been all right at all. It's on and on and on, isn't it?
And a very effective one too.
Yeah.
One might add.
Well, yes, we use it now. And I mean, Jesus talked about it, but he took it one further. It's not enough to be baptized by water. You've got to be baptized by something else. But I think the point that he makes is you've got to stop relying on outer forms, whether it's a temple, whether it's a church, whether it's... And we talked so often about the scaffolding that went down during COVID, of all those outer things. It just keeps hitting home, doesn't it? That unless... that whether it's in the breaking of bread on a road to Emmaus, or it's...
If I can add another little Emmaus thing, is that one of the most powerful things about that is that they were on their way home feeling very disappointed in him and what had happened. And he searched for them, and and he swept the blinds back, furnished their minds, put everything, broke bread, and suddenly they knew right at the centre was him. Not the important, not anything else, but him. And Christianity has always been the same, that if in a relationship you can find yourself wondering why on earth you ever started.
You know, one of them about that story, and there are one or two other things that this whole thing has triggered off in me, but is the idea, I think it's a bit of fun really, the idea of Jesus suddenly appearing and wandering along with them. You know, I mean, it's very subtle.
I haven't used it, but it's about someone saying to Jesus, tell me road to Emmaus. Was that fun?
Well, I think it was
fun.
And
I imagine Jesus might have said, are you seriously saying to me that I would regard something as serious as that as fun? Well, yes, I did actually. I did quite enjoy it. I can't help feeling that.
I think so. I think suddenly he's wandering along next to them and listening to it all, but knowing that it was all right. That it was actually, and that they were going to understand that it was all right. Yeah. Yes, I mean, the only other thing that this whole thing made me think about was that unless the words, then the things, the norms, the things we continue, the mantras to I don't know, to carry on saying, whether it's in very lively worship songs or it's in very boring things, or it's confined to liturgy or whatever it is, unless it becomes real, it isn't worth anything really. And I was thinking about, and we may have talked about this before actually, but then we've talked about most things, so it's fine. We were talking about when we were with World Vision in Bangladesh, and we were in this room with these teenagers, and they were showing us through drama some of the things that they were learning about their rights. Do you remember?
Yeah, of course I do.
And there was this lad who said, because it had been that up until this moment, it had been okay for a man who's married a girl, probably for her dowry, to think, I don't want you anymore, and to be able to say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you 3 times, and that's it. And the girl would be out on the streets. Nothing. Have nothing. And there's this girl, this teenage girl, dressed so traditionally and looking quite demure, saying, in the drama, saying, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And everybody laughing. Because something, so that's the beginning of it, the understanding that actually the law has changed. But then it's going to take a long time for that to become a reality, because there's going to be resistance, just as there was resistance in the Jewish community, obviously, to idea of new ideas.
But
They
in a
just
way,
wouldn't want this new thing.
no,
You know,
in
the
a
men
way
wouldn't want
that
it.
fitted in better than almost anything else, because these were children brought off the streets who were very unimportant people. I mean, I don't know if they were all off the streets, but and there in the middle of that group was a completely new thing, which they were learning to understand, and there's something rather amazing about that.
Yeah.
Really wonderful.
Yes. But it was going to take time, because the men would not want to hear this. They had liked it as it was. That's always the problem with new things. For it to become a reality in the villages, with the women being able to actually stand up and say, no, it's not okay anymore. You can't just say that. Here we are with again and again and again throughout the Bible, and especially with Jesus saying, no, it's not enough. The words aren't enough. You saying you can forgive somebody so many times is not going to be enough. You're going to have to, it's got to become part of you.
Well,
and that comes back to that fire, really.
Let's finish then by just reminding people about that story, that he came to find them because he wanted them back.
Yeah.
And when they'd recognised who he was and they'd felt that burning in them again, they turned round and went back again to Jerusalem.
I think they ran, didn't they? Or they certainly hurtled back.
With their faith replaced and their priorities right, but with the thing they'd had in the first place. Which
they
is
were
what
winners.
we're saying.
They got a gold ticket to take back, to show them. Yeah.
But what an amazing thing to feel. He came all that way, wherever that was, from some cosmos to meet us on the road.
Yes.
And then he broke bread with us.
And that's why, Adrian, when you say you've often wondered whether that was a real conversion that happened to you, I think it came all the way from some other cosmos to begin something in you.
Of course it did. I don't have a doubt about that. And I would say to people, just look out for the genuine return of the person you met in a form you may not know and won't recognise at first. And be excited about that prospect, because what will happen won't be the fulfilling of a project or a way of thinking or a philosophy.
No.
It will be you'll meet him again, and it will happen again, or can happen again. So here we are. Get back to us and argue with us about that.
We'd love to hear from you, as always, and we'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.